is up, guys? It's your boy GRC. We're coming at you live every single day at 11 a.m. Eastern. Tell me if the audio is good. How's everyone doing? Ooh, the chat is absolutely smashing today. Great to see everyone in here. Whoa, major biceps in the chat. Cool hair vibes. Let's go. Everyone's chilling today. I'm on the side of Trayvon on Pulsechain. If it comes out, great, but I'm tired of hearing about it and excited about it. Good to see you, LP Ripper. Smash me, bro. Everyone, we're going to be talking about GBTC. I want to know if this baby can go to zero. Everyone seems to think there's a magical force that can keep GBTC from going to zero, but if they're using collateral and they don't have reserves, they're going to get nuked. And they're down 10% on the day. 10% on the day. GBTC, $7,000 GBTC. Oh my God. Any questions you have about GBTC, just drop them below. I've been researching it a little bit this morning so I can keep everyone up to date. We have a video from the Daily Gwei, 6 minutes long, about this topic. We're going to be discussing, can those funds be moved? We're going to be looking at Vitalik versus some guy, popular guy, I can't remember his name, Graham. And they were going back and forth, some interesting nuanced topics to discuss there with Vitalik. And then, of course, we're going to be talking a little bit of LP Alpha with Sam STOLT. And I'm not even going to say Uni V3 because it could be anything. You never know with Sam what he's going to, but I put a tweet out, guys, and I said, if you have a question, we will save the last 20 minutes of the show today. So if you have a question, I already tweeted this out. If you have a question, but you have to post it, hashtag question. And if you're in the chat and you have a question, you have to say hashtag question as well, because that makes it easier for the GymRat. Okay. So I hope everyone's doing amazing. You guys know I'm just full of giddy and glory on Monday mornings. There's still fear in the market. That means there's still more selly poo-poos to happen because all these emotional bums need to get wrecked. So everyone, let's get it. Crypto in the morning. Make sure you retweet the tweet, drop a question, pump it up. Crypto in the morning. I'm feeling good vibes, guys. Let's get it.
You already know what time it is. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Waiting on phones. Crypto in the morning. 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 Waiting on phones. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Smoking no blunt on my way to the gym. 11 a.m. and I'm already tuned in. Got me some hacks and I'm making a stake. Got me some heads on, I'm making it rain. Pay me some maxi and that's just in case. GymRat sent me to show you the way. Crypto in the morning, 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 crypto in the morning.
What's good? Decided to shave it off today. Get a little.
I tried to shave mine, but my Manscaped literally would not go through mine. I have like a nasty thickness in my hair.
Yeah.
And it was like, I was trying to get
it pulled on it, and you're like, "Ooh, that hurts a little."
Oh, it hurts so bad. You're almost like, I'm done for life. I'll never shave it again. But anyway, Sam STOLT. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning. Good morning. Vitalik, right? We have some tweets to cover on Vitalik. This is interesting. The space.
You see him?
I haven't seen him yet, but I'm looking.
I need you to really think about him because they're kind of confusing, but it's like Vitalik doesn't. Just we'll wait on that. But it's weird.
But he is like, if you think about like who's the leader of crypto, right? Like if you're like, who's like the president of crypto? It's Vitalik, right? There's nobody else has more sway in fucking crypto than he does. Nobody else has more like
Respect.
Correct. Then
That man walks in the room. It doesn't matter who's in there. It doesn't matter what he looks like. It doesn't matter if he has a purse with a kitty on it. Everyone in that room waits for his word because he is really smart with it. And he's the only guy we can left to respect. All the leaders have gone, so, and he's putting out the most innovative technology, more than anyone with the innovative technology. Definitely.
Yes. Correct. And he's like been in one of the longer times, right? But he's also the person who created the most successful, like smart chain based crypto out there. Like, period. It's like you have Bitcoin and you have Ethereum. And then you have like other stuff, but it's like way down on the bottom of the hill, right? And so you have
there's some stuff that's like happening, but most of them are EVM based, which would be Vitalik's nuts. Like that's Vitalik's bag, basically. But it's just like he's nice enough to create an open source situation. And as you'll maybe touch on at the end of the show, quick swap with some of the stuff there and kind of talk about how that works, because I'd like to know more about that personally. Let's play the video. I want Sam to understand these things before we move forward. So this is the Daily Gwei. This is the guy I go to for my daily Ethereum news. He is awesome. And you should follow him. And I think you should follow him and watch him all the time because he's great. So let's see his perspective. Now, he doesn't like talking about this stuff much, so just know he's going to move through it. But he gets through those real details, a little bit of those real details. That's what I'm looking for.
I'll just
get into it. So another crazy few days since I did the last refuel, of course. Times like this where things are volatile, people kind of have a lot of uncertainty, tends to lend itself to craziness. And it's funny because I've been thinking about this, and it's like the ecosystem is at a point where it's basically nothing is really causing fear. It's more apathy, right? Where everyone's just like, okay, get it over with. We know everyone's insolvent and going to go bankrupt. We know everything's going to blow up, right? Whereas I guess even just before the FTX stuff happens, there was still fear from that. And then once the FTX stuff happened, just after, I think there was a bit of fear. But now it's everyone. I mean, there's been so many rumors that everyone is kind of expecting the worst, right? Not expecting anything but the worst, which is funny because that's typically what you see at the end of kind of like not the end of the bear market, but like at the place where the market kind of bottoms. But who knows, right? That's just my general, I guess, experience with these things, because as I put out a tweet last week where I said, bear markets don't end in fear, they end in apathy, because if there's fear, that means there's still people left to sell, right? That's how I look at it anyway. But anyway, the reason why I bring that up is because I guess like the peak thing, I shouldn't say fear, but like the peak thing that everyone's paying attention to right now is the fallout from Genesis. Now, we don't know the status of Genesis, the lending desk.
Will you pause that right there?
They are actually insolvent.
So I'm going to show you something, Sam, before you mention anything. Just look at this real quick. This is, I'm only pulling this up because I read this morning. Look at this here. Okay, absolutely zero bids for Genesis and DCG raise. Genesis creditors are preparing for imminent bankruptcy filing. Okay, this is not me talking. This is Mr. AP Arch Public. And
who is that?
He's just a guy I follow that talks about GBTC all the time. I don't know why, but he is founder, X3 Finance Markets Blockchains from New York, and he's got financial services. He just talks about GBTC. He always does. Like, I kind of looked at him for the last couple of days because I'd noticed on the hashtags he was one of the most relevant people on that hashtag for the, I like the smaller guys that say the truth rather than the bit boys. So I find these guys and I put their notification bell on, and then they come out with, I didn't see it a second ago, look, his last tweet, GBTC discount to NAV is closing in on minus 50%. Let's go to his tweets. Absolutely zero bids on Genesis. Now, what? Now go back to the video and go ahead.
That trend, that chart is just like this, down and to the right. And it doesn't look like it's bottoming out. It looks like it's steepening up, like it's going to be worse. Because people who have money are seeing this. And the people who see, right, the people who see these charts The people who buy BTC, like, let's classify to understand who those people are. The people who are buying GBTC are people who are not super probably knowledgeable about crypto, because you're fucking buying GBTC, right? And you're probably using customers' funds.
What about if you're I thought it was more like the financial firms used the money that you gave them to buy it. I thought that's what
Correct.
it was for.
Okay,
The most
perfect.
part.
So who are those people? Clueless idiots, right? They don't understand.
I feel bad, but I feel bad. It's another scam. They get scammed because they're like, "Hey, I want some exposure," and I think it's safer. They actually
Correct,
think it's safer.
But these are the masses.
That's scamming. Right? That's scamming. That's scamming.
This is like, when you think about the people who buy this stuff, right? Is people who are using their company and or other people's money to buy GBTC, right? Because they're in a regulated market and they don't want to buy that. Anybody who knows anything about crypto is not going to buy this unless they're intelligent enough to say, if this does not go bankrupt. I would be like, wait a second. I can put my Bitcoin on steroids and buy it at a 50% discount if it doesn't go bankrupt, and then ride that up so it goes from where it currently is up 50% while the market is also appreciating. So it's almost like getting steroids on it. But I'm not saying anybody should do that, but it would be one way to do it. And the people who buy this shit, bro, who buy GBTC, they're just buying it to get around regulations. So
I feel bad. I think they're buying it because they're clueless. Like, I don't think the people that real, and it seems like that's kind of how it works, Sam. Like, you'll end up finding these insolvent things are from people that are naive and generally not bad people. Like, it has nothing to do with that. They're just naive because there's no one to educate them, and they're not using the resources that they should be before they put their money in something that's critical. Because I can do it. If I can do it, like, what? You could do it. Like, I don't put my money in this bullshit. I know it's a good deal, but if I don't think it's going up. I mean, geez Louise. But anyway, and some dude asked me this morning, should I sell it? And I said, I ain't telling you shit, but Jesus Lord, I'm glad I ain't got it. But, and I'm like, it's already down. You don't want to be a bottom seller at this point, like, for real. But if you have a lot of money, like, for real, it's tough. It's a toughie, but that's why we want DeFi, So let's go back to the video and then go back like 30 seconds to the part we were at. Sam, make sure you're paying attention so we cannot miss any details here, because he just mentions the Genesis thing and I want to figure it out.
I put out a tweet last week where I said, bear markets don't end in fear, they end in apathy. Because if there's fear, that means there's still people left to sell, right? That's how I look at it anyway. But anyway, the reason why I bring that up is because I guess like the peak thing, I shouldn't say fear, but like the peak thing that everyone's paying attention to right now is the fallout from Genesis. Now, we don't know the status of Genesis, the lending desk. We don't know if they are actually insolvent, how big the hole is in their balance sheet. We don't know if they're going to declare bankruptcy. It seems unlikely at this point. It seems that they have about $1 billion that they're trying to raise. I've been seeing those, I guess, things floating around. I don't have a source to verify that, but I've seen a few people kind of floating that around, and it seems that they're not able to raise the money to plug that hole, because right now, obviously, everyone is kind of scared to put money forward, obviously, for distressed lenders and things like that. They don't want to get involved in that. But if there's anyone that could pull off, or any company that could pull off a raise of that magnitude, or at least get the money some other way, it would be DCG, or Digital Currency Group, which owns Genesis and also owns Grayscale. Now, the reason why I bring up Grayscale is because they put out a tweet thread over the weekend talking about the GBTC and ETH products, or their products in general that they have that trade on the open market, which are pretty crappy products. Right now, both GBTC and ETH are trading at about a 50% discount to the spot market, which means that one GBTC, well, I mean, they're not one-to-one. Like, one GBTC is worth like $8.30, but like times that by 1,000 to get the parity with BTC. But it's the same thing. It's just because GBTC is not actual BTC.
This published 1 hour ago.
That's 1,000 times greater than BTC, but it still kind of tracks. So because if you times that by 1,000, you only get 8,350. That's roughly half, or I guess maybe just under half of what BTC is on the spot market. So that's why we say that it's trading at a almost 50% discount to spot. And this is because there is no way to arb that, arb GBTC, which it's kind of a closed-ended fund where money goes in or BTC goes in and it doesn't come out. And the only way it can come out or can trade at fair value again, I mean, there's two ways. The first way is if people bid it up enough and it goes back to fair value, basically goes back to the value of an actual BTC, or it gets converted to an ETF. Now, we don't know if that's going to happen. It seems unlikely for the foreseeable future. So that's got people kind of scared, and they're like, well, is Grayscale actually fully capitalized here? Do they have the BTC that's backing up this fund? Do they have the ETH that's backing up this fund? And they asked Grayscale, hey, can you prove your reserves? Can you prove can you post the addresses publicly so that everyone can see that you actually have the assets backing up that product? And they did a thread, and there was one tweet in their thread where they said that they custody with Coinbase, and Coinbase frequently performs on-chain validation of the custody, but due to security concerns, we being Grayscale, do not make such on-chain wallet information and confirmation information publicly available through a cryptographic proof of reserve or other advanced cryptographic accounting procedure. Now, obviously, this got everyone kind of up in arms because it's like, well, what is the actual security risk of sharing your wallet? It's already public. It's not like you're sharing a private key. You're literally just sharing a wallet address that if people wanted to try hard enough using something like chain analysis or Nansen, they could potentially track those wallets down. So why not just publish them and kind of quell all these rumors that you don't actually have the funds to back it up? And that's obviously got everyone fired up, and everyone's like, okay, do they actually have the funds now? How bad is this hole? And Barry Silbert, the owner of DCG, which owns Grayscale, has been very silent lately, which obviously isn't instilling much trust in people either. So that seems to be like the second thing that everyone's most worried about. First is Genesis, then there's this Grayscale thing. Now, as I said, like these kind of bottoming of markets tend to, I guess, end in I mean, I said apathy, but there's also a second part of that, which is basically everyone expecting every bad scenario to play out. Like the GBTC and ETH and other Grayscale products could very well be 100% fully, collateralized by the assets that they say they are. They just don't want to reveal the those kind of addresses for their own reasons. Now,
pause that for a second. If you go to point number 7, which you didn't read on there, but point number 7, he goes on to say that this is from the Grayscale Twitter. If you pull that back up for a second, it goes on to say something along the lines of, we know the preceding point in particular will be disappointment to some, but panic sparked by others is not a good enough reason to circumvent complex security arrangements that have kept our investors' assets safe for years. Okay, so think about this. What is this trust? So this trust has something that sells on the market, right? So if people go through and they want to issue more of those, right, they can buy more and they put it into a wallet. That's not complex. There's no complexity here unless you're taking your coins and you're sending them, you're collateralizing them as a loan or something with your parent company, or allowing them to use your coins or something. It's not that complex what you're doing here. And I just wanted to point that out because I don't agree with that point personally.
Cool. And I think that's enough for the article. We have a couple other things we're going to read on it, or one or two other things. I mean, enough of the video. He kind of lays it out, though. He's a little gentle on both ends. Like, he's not super aggressive about like wanting people to get sketched out either. So he kind of just, and those aren't his favorite topics. He likes talking about software. So he just talks about like all the nerdy stuff most of the time. But let's pull up the next article. But what do you think about Sam? Like, what do you think so far? Like, what's on your mind about it? Because people want to know what your thoughts on the whole matter are before we get into the next. Because they also use ETH on there.
A lot of the times these things can be structured from an incentive standpoint, where I get more money if I can increase the returns. So you could increase returns by reducing costs or taking on leverage. Leverage allows you to juice up returns, right? So given that these are legacy players and that their sister company, Genesis, does crypto lending, I don't get a good feeling about this. Like I would never want to have money in that because I don't get a good feeling about this. I wouldn't. That just
I get the same feeling I get with everything else that goes bad.
That's not a good. If I live in a house with somebody who likes to do dangerous shit to other people and hurt other people, do you think that part of that reputation of that other person who lives in my house, you're going to see me? I'm like, hey man, let's hang out, let's do business together. Do you think you're going to trust me when you know the other person in my house rips people off and physically hurts people? No, you're not going to want to do business with me. And in this case, we have Grayscale, right? Then we have the parent company that does lending. You don't think that there's some type of, when I own multiple businesses, I run the businesses in a way that optimizes all the pieces of them. So if there's something in this business that can be beneficial to this business, I can do business together between my businesses so that I can be better overall. I don't know. I'm just not getting a good feeling about this. I'd have to take a look at the terms of service.
Well, I think that might not make a difference, Sam. I think they might have extra terms of service that you might not even be able to read, because you have to go to the Coinbase terms of service. You have to go to their terms of service. You got to find out there's no possible loophole. Sam, I suggest you don't spend all day doing that, because I have a feeling there's a loophole. Come on. You could take leverage on your house. There's loopholes for everything. You don't need to make a dime to do anything, but you do need to put some elbow grease in sometimes. Sometimes people are willing to do it. Grayscale Trust, what should have been done and why? This is the next article we're going to listen to. Yes.
Grayscale Trusts, What Should Be Done and Why? By Peter Chur. Grayscale has two main trusts that trade under the tickers GBTC and F. As of the close of U.S. trading at 4 p.m. on Friday, both ETFs were trading at discounts to net asset value, NAV, of about 45%. That is an extremely large discount to NAV for any fund and is particularly disconcerting since prior to February 2021, they had traded at premiums. This shift from premium to discount has caused a lot of questions, and I think what happens next could be critical for not only investors in GBTC and F, but for the entire crypto community. Worst case scenario. From my perspective, the worst case scenario is that somehow the trusts do not have ownership of the cryptocurrencies they report they have. @Grayscale had a Twitter thread this weekend which included purported screenshots from Coinbase, that they were acting as custodian for the amount claimed. There has been some questions about the letter. The positions were from the end of September, for example, and the hardcore crypto players want to see actual wallets so that they can verify the amounts. Given the efforts by Grayscale this weekend and the WSJ reporting on the subject, this seems like an unlikely scenario. If, for some reason, it turns out that the CYRPTO isn't there and/or isn't accessible, it would be disastrous for the crypto industry. It would call into question anyone's assertion that they hold crypto. If players with the size, scope, and even regulatory scrutiny of Grayscale and Coinbase can't keep their holdings safe, secure, and accessible, then who could? Yet, for many, it is difficult to look at 45% discounts to NAV and wonder if someone knows something nefarious is at play here. I'm assuming this is a virtually 0% probability scenario, but if it occurs, there will be carnage in the space. Best case scenario. At this point, some unwinding of the trusts seems to be the best case outcome. As of Friday, GBTC, for example, had over 630,000 bitcoins. At Friday's price of $16,500 per Bitcoin, the theoretical value of the assets of the trust would be just over $15 per share, well above the $8.35 closing price. GBTC's Bitcoin is just over 3% of the Bitcoin outstanding, part of the reason these trusts are such an important part of the crypto discussion. Could Grayscale sell the 630,000 or so Bitcoin and achieve an average price of more than $9,200? If so, there would be enough money to pay off the shares at Friday's close. If they realized more than that, the shareholders would net more money, ignoring some likely legal, accounting, and other transaction-related fees. If Bitcoin BTC minus 2.6% liquidity is anything less than abysmal, it seems that they should be able to sell even that relatively large slug at an average price of $9,200. If they can't, what does that say about Bitcoin? Nothing good in my opinion. If the market knows they are selling, then that would impede liquidity, but they could have been entering into hedges or other mechanisms ahead of the announcement to alleviate the risk that the market drops all liquidity. Some ask, why would Grayscale do this, since it would stop their cash cow? The funds charge at least 2%, so generate over $300 million annually for Grayscale. That is a lot of money to give up, by unwinding the trust. I see two reasons for them to do it. 1, they could face legal challenges down the road, meaning that they won't keep those fees until the money runs out. So maybe doing the right thing by customers doesn't cost as much as it looks and keeps you positioned to gain assets in future vehicles. 2, if they own enough of GBTC, or their affiliates or related entities, then they would profit on the unwind themselves. If they can get a good price for the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETH minus 3.5%, they would have to sell. Digital Currency Group, DCG, the owner of Grayscale, owned 28 million shares of GBTC as of February 2022, according to Bloomberg based on annual filings by DCG. We don't know how much DCG owns, but they would be in position to accumulate more and short Bitcoin or Bitcoin futures to make the unwind of the trust go more smoothly. If they owned $2 billion of GBTC and did the unwind with minimal price disruption on Bitcoin, they could $800 million themselves, which covers 4 full years of $200 million from fees for Grayscale. The 2% fees are not certain in perpetuity. Grayscale claims to be trying to become an ETF which would cut those fees, and the entities around Grayscale stand to profit if an unwind or resolution was well executed. This is my base case and think would provide a pop to GBTC and ETH as their prices rose somewhat, as the liquidation values would be at less of a discount than is priced in. The meh scenario. More of the same. The discount grows as investors speculate that 1. The crypto is just not there and/or is just not accessible. 2. The company just wants to grind out the 2% fees for as long as possible. This scenario will remain an overhang for crypto as it will allow, even encourage, too many negative stories, not just about GBTC and ETH, but the parties involved, the safety of wallets, etc. Bottom line. I'd like to see progress towards unwinding the trusts and paying people out at liquidation value. I think that would be the best thing for those involved in the industry as a whole. Until that happens, there will be a big overhang. If the almost unthinkable happens and somehow the assets turn out not to be accessible, then this will make the so-called crypto winter look like just a brief snow flurry.
That's what they went over in the article. Is interesting, right?
I never read that one, but I believe that last sentence powerful.
If they decide to unwind the trust, which would probably take some foresight and whatnot, then they could actually make a big profit here, close to $1 billion, depending on how they did it, right? But that's assuming they have access to these. And if they don't have access to these, or you find out that DCG, right, the parent company that owned 22 million shares, understood the risk better than you or whoever else is invested in there, so that if they have 22 million shares and they had that back in February that was reported, but if I understand that shit's going to go to zero because of the risk profile that I took out, right, then I'm going to sell my shit. And this stuff could be very interesting because with centralized entities, they can obfuscate the truth. They can obfuscate what's actually going on. Crypto, blockchain, you get to see what's actually taking place. So if they don't give more information, this is just going to be there for a while, right? That's just going to be oh shit. And we're going to see more selling. Currently, Bitcoin's at 16,000. Ethereum's at $1,100. We're going to see more selling if this doesn't get resolved soon, because there's a giant risk there that the company's just not addressing. Every other company that does leverage is out of business effectively, but you, come on, right? This is the last straw that needs to break before we see the bottom potentially, right? This is the thing that's just we're all waiting for this thing to crash. We're all waiting for this thing to die and just implode so that we can move on and just start to grow, It's a very interesting article there. We're still talking about it, right? We're still talking about it. So over this next couple of weeks, I would probably guess less than a couple of weeks, but you saw that on that chart you pulled up on Twitter, it was down and to the right, and then just over the last couple of days, it was like that. It was like straight down. I think that we could see more of that, and at some point, the profit from liquidation, assuming they actually have the Bitcoin, if they actually have the Bitcoin, the profit from liquidating it could be enough for them to liquidate it, right? So if the discount comes down to say 65% relative to market value of BTC, and you could profit $1.2 billion in say the course of a 3-month unwind of that trust, then they're like, wait, I get 300 million. I think he said 200 million. I get 200 million in fees every year, so it's 800 million over the next 4 years, or over the next 4 months, I could get 1.2 billion dollars. And wait, I, as the company executive, I get a percentage of profits. Wait a second. If I get 20% bonus on anything above $200 million, that's enough for me to retire and never work again, right? And because you're going to have, 20% of $800 million or $1 billion, right? You just made $200 million if you're getting 20% of this. So that could be interesting, but that like sits on the assumption that they have control of these things and they didn't lend them out. If they don't have control of these, if they don't have access to these things, that's not good. Then that's where you see the implosion. That's where you see the fire trucks. That's where you see like explosions going off and everything. That's when we know that's like super close to the bear market. We're at the very, very bottom. Like I have a feeling that we're going to be able to experience this all together, right? At the same exact time. We'll be able to see this. We already see we're expecting somewhere around 11,000 BTC, right? We're at 16. That means we could see this even implode more. Maybe this is what like drives MicroStrategy, right? MicroStrategy, MicroSailor, if they don't have the cash to continue to put money in and back up their collateral. Remember, MicroSailor stepped down from MicroStrategies. So if this goes away because they don't either, they see the profit as a benefit that they can take today, or they don't have access to the BTC, which drives the price down, and then MicroStrategies still has any leverage that they haven't taken care of, then that could, all this unwinding over a relatively short period of time, massive buying opportunities.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Let's read this quick thread from Vitalik from yesterday. And Sam, just give me your thoughts on it because it's in nerd code, but it's kind of understandable. Vitalik Buterin, 15 hours ago. I'm hearing through the grapevine that something important is about to happen. Please recognize the fact that my elite social connections to people who are early to know things make me cool. And please help me validate my self-image of coolness. So we were like, oh, Vitalik doesn't like to jab at people so much. So then this guy answers. Mr. Paul Graham.
A little bit.
Mr. Paul Graham. Oh, shit. I clicked the wrong one.
That's okay. You can read it if you
okay. Oh, well, look at that. All my fucking DMs. Anyway. That's an asshole thing to say. I didn't pass on that message to look cool. I passed it on with some reluctance because the guy who wrote it asked me to. He thought it may help people who were overexposed to risky assets. That's Paul Graham. He's got 1.5 million subscribers. Don't know much about him. If anyone knows about him, drop it in the comments. I wasn't responding to you. I meant it when I say I don't subtweet single examples, just calling out a general pattern on CT I found insufferable over the past week. I still am not 100% sure what they're talking about. Sai, I'll explain.
CT is crypto Twitter.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'll explain where I am coming from in more detail because there's a thing that happens on here where people give out rumors and people retweet them and lots of people start trading on that info. So Sam, as you know, a lot of people shark his wallets to see when to sell because he generally, I said we wait for Vitalik to dump and then the rest of the market dumps. But that was just a joke. I was just reading what they were saying. So I don't really understand what he's saying, but basically he's upset that people are trading off of rumors, and that's not the world he wants to live in as far as his decentralized, you know what I mean? But again, I don't know exactly who this.
I mean, read through that top tweet
Mhm.
again. When you read through that top tweet again, I don't get the idea that this has anything to do with like, or this is like inside information. Like he's connected to people, right? Like if you're asking me about like steroids or peptides, you're gonna be like, okay, cool. Sam understands that shit because he talks to those people all the time. He has a business. He understands what's going on. He reads about that shit, right? He has a podcast on all that shit, right? So if I say something about that, you're gonna be like, okay, cool. Sam probably knows what he's talking about in that realm. And then to have Vitalik, right, who meets with people in government around the world, meets with people in legacy finance around the world, and then come out to say, I'm hearing through the grapevine that something important is about to happen. Please recognize the fact that my elite social connections to people who are early to know things make me cool. And please help me validate my self-image of coolness. He's either stimulating the sell-off here, right? Which could be good, right? Or there's something else going on here. Like maybe Genesis is going away, right? Maybe GBTC is going away. Like, am I like using a lens to see this in a negative way, right? I don't know. Is he talking about like, hey, through the grapevine, we're almost at the bottom of the market. We're going to start to, go back up. Remember, when we do start to go back up, people are not going to think it's going back up, right? So you have to get to the peak point of like, so many people are saying, oh, it's not a good investment. Oh my God, this is so horrible. Oh my God, I lost so much money. Everybody's pulling out. People are asking the question if crypto's even going to be around. Like when you start hearing those types of things, right? And then when the market starts to move around slightly to come back up, people are not going to believe that we're going on the uptrend for a while, right? It's going to take a little bit of time from people to change their beliefs to recognize that we're on an upward trend. This is fascinating to actually watch play out on a daily basis, bro. Because like you see that market cycle of, the psychology of what happens through different cycles, and to actually watch it play out in real time with Twitter and having like the fire hose of like what's actually taking place in crypto. Because if somebody's like, hey, I want to get warm, right? And they're at a bonfire, what do you tell them to do? To move closer to the fire, right? Because that's where the heat is. Well, if somebody wants to learn more about crypto, what do you tell them to do? Get on Twitter, right? Because Twitter is the fire where the information is on here. And I don't know, this is fascinating shit, bro. What do you see? What is your interpretation of this when you're looking at these?
I think Vitalik's a powerful man. That's all I think. And
but what do you
think he uses that power?
Like, you're good at like paying attention to what people think of things, all right, and seeing the essence of like what's going on, and you're looking at like retweets. Like, what do you think that could potentially mean? Is it just for his ego because he wants to say that he's cool?
I think it means that Vitalik. I think Vitalik has a lot of control over what goes on, and he doesn't use it all the time. And he's willing to, and he's telling people that, to trust him, that he's not here to be evil to you. So I just believe that. I don't know what's actually going to happen with the price action, but as far as like the sentiment, like I think Ethereum sentiment's been going up, and I think Vitalik stock is going up. It might get confused. It all matters in the bull run, when people are deciding what to actually put their money in and think about. So I just don't think it means much, but I think the insider trading is getting out of control. I think the government being involved is getting out of control. And I think Vitalik's sick of it. I think of Vitalik's, the only thing hard about it is that everyone can see everything. And then that's exactly what they use to just like leverage trade on. So it bothers him in that sense, I think. But he's trying to do something beautiful, and there's a lot of people in the way. And I think he was just making that clear that I think trust in Vitalik is at all-time highs. And I think it's good. I think it's good.
It's very interesting that that was the tweet. So before we got on, you had told me like, hey, I have some tweets to cover for Vitalik. I had not read those tweets at all. I hadn't. But remember, what did I say at the beginning, which I firmly believe? The president of crypto, the person with the most sway, the most impact, Vitalik. And what is he saying? He's saying like, hey, I know a lot of fucking important people. You peasants may want to listen to this tweet, right? You little peons, right? You're not at my level, and understand I've got a lot of important people that I talk to that think of you as peasants.
And he can get you arrested probably for some shit if you're being real off the cuff. Like he's like, listen, I know people, I got money, I can ruin your life. I choose not to, but I can, and I will. If I have to, because you're being obviously they're pushing a line on something. Sam, we have 8 minutes. You can go through a little. There wasn't many questions on, lots of retweets, but no real questions on the tweet. If anyone has a question about LP, do you want to do a little 5 or 10 on LP?
Yeah, we've got 7 minutes left. Let's go through and
you are having a point about.
I'm
going to ask you some questions too. Like one quick question about your video earlier. What is up with QuickSwap? And then what kind of liquidity moves are you looking at and showing people over the last 2 days or day?
So QuickSwap, and then we'll talk about, like, there was a little tip that I shared with you in Bullish that nobody else knows about liquidity providing before we came on here. So then we'll get into that.
I just got to pee, but I can hear you.
Okay. QuickSwap. Okay. So QuickSwap was a fork of Uniswap v2. And they put a proposal forth in June of 2022 to purchase the license of Uniswap v3. They said that the max cost to purchase the license of v3 was about $350,000. So this is interesting, right? From the standpoint of, like, and then a little bit of a tangent, but think of Pulsechain, right? Pulsechain, like v3 is you can't even compare like a Toyota and a Ferrari, right? V3 is a Ferrari, V2 is the Toyota. The Toyota works, but it's fucking Toyota, right? Versus the Ferrari. And Pulsechain is the Toyota, right? Yes, it has better tokenomics. Cool. It's still Toyota, right? You put fucking rims on it and you tinted the windows. Cool for you, bro. You put an exhaust on it and you get a rice burner, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's still a Toyota, right? You painted it red and you put, like, you know, some aftermarket things on the ECU to upgrade it and in the intercooler on it. Great. Still a Toyota, right? And that's V2. So if it's only $350,000 to get the license for V3, right? That's what they put forth in the proposal. Maybe that changed, but they said in their language, this is a max cost for the license of $350,000. That's dirt cheap when you raise $1+ billion of capital from people in the crypto market to create a new ecosystem, right? If it's that cheap, in my opinion, that is money very well spent to get that and utilize that for Pulsechain. But to get back to QuickSwap, QuickSwap has the capacity to utilize V2 and V3 pools when you put an order in, right? So they're like, oh, you get the best trade. But what all they do that's different than Uniswap V3 is that they tell you this. V3 does exactly the same thing. It's their auto router automatically does this. It's been out there for quite a long time. But you can now provide liquidity on, where you could do this on V3 anyway, but you could provide liquidity on QuickSwap with V2 or V3. So that's unique to be able to do that in the same UI, the same like website. You can provide liquidity, and you're on Polygon. So you're going to use Matic, right? So you can go to like alt-chain bridge, which means that, like, we've talked about $2,000, right? To be like kind of the Ethereum threshold-ish to like provide liquidity because the fees are so high, right? And you want it to be profitable quickly. So You could do it with less than that, but just depending on how you have to go with less of a narrow range, you would got to go with a little bit wider of a range to do that on Ethereum. If you go to Polygon, you can use Matic, and the fees are so low that it doesn't matter if you have to adjust your position at all. I know somebody who was on the stream this morning, and he's been on a bunch of the streams. He's earning over 1% a day. My friends, you got hex stakes. You're like, oh, cool, I'm getting 36% a year. Cool, bro. Told them I've gotten over 3 and 4% in a single day. A single day. You got to wait a whole year to get your 36%? Great. I got to wait 46 days. And I got 50%. Like, it just...
Again, it's just definitely another avenue for people that want to do that shit, for sure.
Correct.
Like,
Correct.
if you want to do that, I think Richard wants V3 as well. I don't know exactly how it works. Kind of depends when Pulsechain launches too. Like if it's in 2 years, like I don't think it'll be a problem having V3 on there. But if it's like next week, like it also depends. There's lots of. It doesn't necessarily mean anything's going to change right away, but it does. I think some people don't like V3 because it makes the liquidity providing more transparent and harder for them. But it makes it easier for them to use, but harder for them to manipulate. If that makes it like, if you have everyone doing the same thing, it's kind of like cattling like into one, and then they know, right? And then they know it's like, okay, everyone's in there that's making money, making that rate. So anything that we're making, it's like you just have to base it on that, and then they're just crushing. So I have a feeling like maybe Binance and some of these things feels like it wouldn't be to their advantage at this moment because of that.
But what do you know about Richard Hart that he's talked about in multiple videos?
He loves V3.
Okay, so given we also know that he's a cheap person, correct? Right, and that we get that implication by him saying in the videos that he doesn't like to spend money on things, and unless it's like pretending he's cool, like buying shit that's like that type of stuff, right? That he buys, or that that one with Hexo where he went out to dinner with Hexo and just got up and left and didn't pay for the dinner, right? So we know he's cheap, right, in some ways. Now, when you see this and you're like, wait, the dude really likes this thing, but also he's extremely cheap, that makes me believe that the launch of Pulse might be like, as you mentioned, after the license, right? Because if he could come out with V3 for Pulse X, where you have a range order and you have it automatically exited, that's what I want to create right now for Uniswap V3, because you can pull if you could pull your position automatically, that would be glorious. And then the last thing real quick before we wrap things up here, I was showing this to Bullish and GRC earlier today. So this is the pair ETH and Hex at the 0.3%. And this, not that this is a great pair, not that this is a bad pair. This is just a pair I wanted to use to illustrate this. This pink line here is the price, the current price in the market, right? It's about this price. I just moved it manually, so it's not exactly this price. But when you look at the distributions for liquidity, which that's what this is. That's like people saying, hey, we're going to provide liquidity in this range. But when you take the entire market of people who provide liquidity between these two assets, this is what it looks like as a histogram, right? When it's like a Friday afternoon or a Saturday or Sunday, and you see a price movement like this, right? Where the price goes from right here to over here, that's an opportunity, because one of the things that I've noticed over the last couple of months as I've been doing more and more of this is that when the price moves like this, what happens is a lot of people don't adjust their positions, or not as many people adjust their positions on the weekends as they do during the week. So if this happened, say on a Monday or Tuesday, and the price moved over here, you would literally see this blob of blue migrate over here. And it would effectively migrate to something like this, where the blob of blue would like migrate so that it would be the peak point on this chart is at where the price is. So when you have these moves outside of here, right, what ends up happening? There's very little liquidity, which means that you're the only player there earning all the fees. The volume doesn't change that drastically, but the number of people trying to earn fees changes. And the example that I used this morning was, if you have a farmer's market and everybody is in the parking lot at the farmer's market, right? And you got the cars and you have everybody, and then there's a strip mall. And then you've got everybody going through and they're buying their knickknacks and they're buying their other garbage from the farmer's market. And then somebody comes along with a gun or whatever your thing is that sparks people to move. Now, all the people that were in front of the building run to the back of the building. And you are back there selling life insurance for people or bulletproof vests for people, right? They're like, I got a bulletproof vest, it's $695, right? Do you think you're going to sell way more business, right? Because all the other vendors have all their garbage in the front, right? So you adjusted your position. You took all your tent and all your supplies and you brought it to the back of the building. And all the other vendors are in the front. So you earn all the fees from the customers. And that's effectively what this is like when this happens. On the weekends, it's awesome because then nobody's really paying. There's not as many people paying attention, which means that they don't adjust their position and you can earn those ridiculous fees. That's how I've earned, the 4+% in a single day with LP, because things like this happen and you're like, oh shit, why are people not adjusting their positions? Right? Everybody went from the front of the parking lot to behind the stores. And I'm just sitting there selling them all shit. I was like, why isn't anybody else here selling them shit? It's just nonstop. I'm just collecting so much money, right? It's awesome. So that was a little tip that I told people. Pay attention to that. We're going to wrap things up. I don't know where GSC went. I think he's probably taking a poop. But we're going to wrap things up. If you would like to support the channel, you guys can check out the links down below. Check out Twitter. Check out the lots of stuff going on Twitter. If you're into crypto, go over there. Last thing here, I just made a bunch of videos over the past several months on liquidity providing. If you want to learn more about that, go check it out. Check out the CIMTcast.com right down there below. And you can check out we're on all the podcast platforms. So if you drive a lot, if you have a friend that wants to learn more about crypto, tell them to listen to the podcast. Leave us a review. Tag us on Instagram. Links down below. And with that, we're going to head out of here with some DeFi proof. Peace.
You already know what time it is. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. 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 Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Smoking no blunt on my way to the gym. 11 a.m. I'm already tuned in. Got me some hacks and I'm making a steak. Got me some hedron, I'm making it rain. Pay me some maxi and that's just in case. GymRatCrypto sent me to show you the way.